Hollywood, January 15, 1947. A city shimmering with the allure of fame and success, where dreams are born and stars are made. But on this cold winter morning, something far darker than fame took center stage. The body of 22-year-old Elizabeth Short, later infamously known as the Black Dahlia, was discovered in a gruesome state. Her murder became one of Hollywood's most notorious unsolved cases, and over 70 years later, the mystery of who killed the Black Dahlia still haunts the city. Elizabeth Short was a beautiful young woman, seeking stardom in Los Angeles. But the journey from an aspiring actress to the victim of one of the most brutal and perplexing murders in Hollywood history was one filled with twists, turns, and unanswered questions. What happened to her, and who was responsible for her brutal murder? It was a typical morning for Betty Berzinger, who was walking with her young daughter down a quiet street in Limer Park, Los Angeles. As she passed what she first thought was a discarded mannequin, she was shocked to realize that it was no mannequin at all. It was a human body, mutilated and posed in a way that seemed deliberately macabre. The woman's body was severed at the waist, drained of blood, and her face was disfigured by deep cuts that extended from the corners of her mouth, giving her an eerie, clown-like smile. The police were called immediately, and what they found shocked even the most seasoned detectives. Elizabeth Short's body had been surgically bisected, and there were no signs of blood at the scene, indicating that she had been killed elsewhere. Her remains had been carefully cleaned, and the precision with which her body was mutilated suggested that the killer was no ordinary person. This was someone with medical knowledge, perhaps a surgeon, or worse, someone with a twisted fascination for death. As the investigation unfolded, the media quickly dubbed Elizabeth Short the Black Dahlia, a nickname that added an air of mystique to the case. Reporters compared her dark, striking beauty to the Black Dahlias that were fashionable in Hollywood at the time. The public became fascinated with her life and death, but in the frenzy of media attention, the facts of the case began to blur with rumors and speculation. Elizabeth Short was portrayed as a mysterious, almost ethereal figure. Some accounts painted her as an innocent, a wide-eyed dreamer who had come to Hollywood seeking fame, but fell into the wrong crowd. Others suggested that she was living a secret double life, mingling with dangerous people who may have ultimately led to her downfall. The truth, however, was far more complex. Elizabeth had moved to Los Angeles just months before her death, hoping to break into the movie industry. Like many young actresses, she struggled to make a living, working various odd jobs and staying with friends or acquaintances. Despite her striking beauty, success in Hollywood eluded her. She was known to frequent bars and clubs, trying to network with people who might help her get her big break. But those glamorous nights out also brought her into contact with questionable characters. As the investigation progressed, police honed in on a number of suspects, but none were definitively linked to the crime. The first suspect was Robert Manley, a salesman who had reportedly spent time with Elizabeth in the days leading up to her death. He claimed to have dropped her off at the Biltmore Hotel, where she said she had plans to meet her sister. Manley passed a lie detector test and was eventually cleared of any involvement in the murder, but the cloud of suspicion over him never completely lifted. Another figure of interest was Mark Hansen, a nightclub owner who had housed Elizabeth for a short time. He was known for being friendly with young actresses and aspiring starlets, but he was also rumored to have a darker side. Although the police found no direct evidence linking Hansen to the murder, his proximity to Elizabeth's life kept him in the spotlight as a possible suspect. As days turned into weeks, the police followed leads, but they were soon overwhelmed by the volume of false confessions. Over 60 people claimed responsibility for Elizabeth Short's murder, some seeking attention, while others believed they had genuinely committed the crime despite having no knowledge of the details. The police found themselves chasing dead-end tips, and the case began to stagnate. One of the most intriguing developments in the case came when a series of letters, allegedly from the killer, were sent to the Los Angeles Examiner newspaper. These letters were carefully constructed, using cut-out words and letters from magazines, and they boasted about the crime. Some even contained items that belonged to Elizabeth, such as her birth certificate, photographs, and an address book. The killer seemed to revel in the media frenzy surrounding the case, enjoying the power he had over both the press and the police. The letters were taunting, and they suggested that whoever was behind the murder was not only meticulous but also narcissistic, someone who wanted to control the narrative of the investigation. The public followed these developments with morbid fascination, each new letter intensifying the mystery. But despite the psychological profile that was emerging, the police were no closer to identifying the person responsible. As years passed, various theories about the Black Dahlia murder emerged. Some investigators believed that Elizabeth Short had been killed by a doctor, owing to the surgical precision with which her body was mutilated. One of the most prominent theories was that Dr. George Hodel, a wealthy and eccentric physician with a checkered past, was involved. His own son, Steve Hodel, a former LAPD homicide detective, later accused his father of the crime in a book published decades after the murder. Dr. Hodel's history of criminal behavior, along with his access to medical knowledge, made him a compelling suspect. It was even revealed that Hodel's home had been bugged by the LAPD during a separate investigation, and one chilling recording captured him allegedly saying, "Suppose I did kill the Black Dahlia. They can't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary because she's dead." Despite this, no charges were ever brought against him, and his involvement remained speculative. Other theories suggested that Elizabeth had been killed by a mobster or an underground figure with ties to Hollywood. Some speculated that her murder was part of a larger conspiracy involving corrupt police officers or influential Hollywood elites, though these claims have never been substantiated. As the years went by, the case of the Black Dahlia remained unsolved, and the myth surrounding Elizabeth Short only grew. The brutality of the crime, coupled with the media frenzy and the lack of concrete answers, turned the Black Dahlia into a symbol of Hollywood's dark underbelly. Elizabeth became more than just a murder victim. She became an icon of tragedy, her unsolved case a lasting reminder of the dangers that lurked beneath the glitz and glamour of 1940s Los Angeles. In the decades that followed, Elizabeth's story has been retold in books, movies, and television shows. The fascination with her life and death continues to captivate true crime enthusiasts, and her murder remains one of Hollywood's oldest and most chilling unsolved cases. The questions of who killed her, why, and how they managed to evade justice continue to echo through the corridors of history. More than 70 years have passed since Elizabeth Short's body was found in that empty lot in Los Angeles. Yet the Black Dahlia case remains unsolved. The theories are endless, and the suspects are many, but the truth remains elusive. What we do know is that Elizabeth Short was a young woman with dreams of making it in Hollywood. She became famous, but not in the way she had hoped. Her tragic death left a mark not only on Hollywood, but on the nation as a whole, a haunting reminder of how easily dreams can turn into nightmares. The Black Dahlia smile, grotesquely carved into her face, serves as a chilling symbol of a mystery that may never be fully understood, forever shrouded in darkness.